Hello Tech Pros, episode 202.
Well, I think the biggest thing is to know who you surround yourself with, because I think a lot of people are putting themselves in danger because they don't quite understand who they have around them.
Welcome to the podcast where I chat with professionals who are getting the job done using technology 7 days a week. Each week we start with Motivation Monday. Tuesday is about productivity, Wednesday, leadership, Thursday, technology, Friday, people and communication, Saturday, entrepreneurship, and Sunday, being unplugged. All right, let's get started. Hello, Tech Pros. This is Chad Bostic, and I'm excited to introduce our featured guest today, Jeremy Slate. Happy Saturday, Jeremy.
Hey, thanks for having me, Chad. I am stoked to be here and offer some value to your audience, man.
Awesome. We're glad to have you. Jeremy Slate is the founder of Create Your Own Life podcast, which helps entrepreneurs live the lives they know they were meant to. He studied literature at Oxford University and specializes in using online social networking to build offline relationships. And he was also ranked #1 in iTunes New and Noteworthy. It is because of Jeremy's success in podcasting that he was able to accomplish 10,000 downloads of his podcast in the first month. After success in podcasting, Jeremy and his wife Brielle founded Slate Media Productions, a done-for-you podcast service and PR firm servicing busy entrepreneurs, helping them get their message out. Jeremy, that's an awesome story and awesome vision of what you're doing now, man. I salute you. 10,000 downloads in the first month is not an easy chore, and I salute you on that, my friend.
It takes a lot of action to do something like that, especially when nobody knows who the heck you are, you know?
Yeah, I hear you. I just hit my first 10,000 download month a couple months ago. That was in July of 2016. So while we're recording this, it was just a few weeks ago, but as this is being published, it was a couple months ago now, and it felt great. It felt awesome to hit that milestone. That's a big milestone.
That's very well done, man. Awesome.
Cool. Thank you. So, Jeremy, today is Entrepreneurship Saturday on Hello Tech Pros, and it's all about our side hustles and our getting our vision out there and doing the things that we want to do for us. And, some of our audience members are like, yeah, I'm thinking about starting a podcast, or, I don't know if a podcast is right for me or not, but I have an app idea, or I currently, I'm in a startup and my co-founders and I are trying to get our thing off the ground and our thing launched. So I thought what would be great is to just, first of all, get your definition of what does entrepreneurship mean to you?
To me, it means kind of, I guess, in the vein of everything I've been doing. My podcast is called Create Your Own Life, and the idea is of creating life on your own terms. A lot of times when we get a job, we have to do things, exactly as the business owner wants or something like that. And, granted, they started and took the risk, so more power to them. But entrepreneurship is creating life on your own terms and really being more a cause of your environment rather than effect over it,
Yeah, I love that. It's kind of like you are the captain of the ship, and you know what? If the ship goes down, well, God bless you, man. It's a tough way to work. It's tough to get your business off the ground, but you completely have the steerage. You can point it in any direction you want, and you can make the rules on how you want it to work.
Absolutely, my brother. That is totally true.
Cool. So let's hear about your story, man. So how did you get started? What was your first step along the journey of being an entrepreneur?
Oh gosh. Well, can I take you a little bit further back, because my story is a little bit crazy how I got to where I am.
Let's do it. Yeah.
Yeah. At 19 years old, funny enough, I was in college for a degree in world religions, and I was playing football, and I stepped in a drain, tore 3 major ligaments in my knee, which is supposed to be like a half-hour surgery, and it turned into 3 days on life support and getting last rites. So that was a scary situation that it should have made me look at life a little bit and say, okay, man, you got one shot at this thing. What are you going to do? But instead, nothing really happened, and I just kept going along at this same thing. And I was going to school to be a teacher, which was living somebody else's life plan for myself. I love my parents dearly, but I did it to make them happy, and it felt safe. So I ended up doing that, getting a world religions degree. Then I went to Oxford and studied literature, got a master's in ancient history. Then after getting out, I ended up personal training for about a year because I didn't have a teaching degree. I only had a I only had a master's in history, but when you go to private school, you can teach there. So I ended up personal training for about a year before I was approached by a priest friend of mine and said, hey, listen, the private school I work at is looking for teachers. So I was like, okay, this is my shot. I'm going to start teaching. I got in there for about a year, and I was miserable, man. I liked working with people one-on-one. I liked tutoring. I liked, that whole idea. Anyway, so stick me in a room with 40 kids, and it was like super tough. So I was miserable every day coming home, and my fiance at the time was just, asking me how long I could do this. And starting into the second year of this, my mother had a stroke, and it was like pretty bad to the point where she lost all her language skills. She really lost her ability to work and get around. And, this was kind of the second time that life had warned me, do the same thing and you're going to, for the rest of your life, not be doing things that you want to do. And, it was such a tough situation that I was kind of paralyzed. I was paralyzed for a bit until later in 2013, my wife was approached with a network marketing opportunity, and I had never seen it before. I had never seen anything like that. And I was under the impression after watching this presentation that, next month I'm going to make $100,000. So it's time to quit the job. So, needless to say, that didn't happen. But it was something that at least made me make a leap. It was a dangerous leap, but I made a leap into going full time into that. That, along with personal training, paid my bills for like the next 2 years, but just barely. And I still wasn't happy, though, because it was another stressful situation. It was something that, once again, I really didn't like doing. And last May, I ended up getting awarded a mission trip to go to Peru for 30 days and, help people there and raise money and stuff like that. And it really took me out of my environment and allowed me to think about what was going on in my life and a lot of the choices I had made and everything like that. And it just made me decide, okay, you don't like this whole network marketing thing. Well, it's time to quit, bud. It's time to do something about it. And I had decided I was going to start a podcast. So I came back, didn't quit network marketing, kept doing it, and I started a podcast called Rock Your Life. And it was horrible because, number one, I was distracted. I was stuck in this other thing I was doing that I didn't want to do. And number two, I didn't know what I was doing. I just tried to. It was a show where I kind of went on and talked for 25 minutes or half an hour about whatever I thought people needed to hear, and I wasn't an expert. I hadn't really surveyed what was needed and wanted. So it went on for about a month and a half or 2 months, and I quit because the numbers were horrible. I hit, I think, 100 downloads in the first month and maybe 200 in the second, so it was bad, man. And it took until later that year. I got married in September, and I finally decided, all right, if you're going to do this, you have to really decide you're going to do something. So I quit network marketing. I actually quit it for real and started the podcast called Create Your Own Life. But I took a training course first. I did a lot of back end work and found, the 100 people I most admired. And that was a big difference from where I was before. And, that kind of led me into this amazing journey of podcasting and networking with other people and interviewing other people, which led me to be able to create my own business doing that for others and helping them to get PR for their company and themselves.
Man, Jeremy, thank you for sharing that. What an awesome journey. And I think there's a lot of people that can relate to that. I can certainly relate to that story of starting something because, first of all, you're just kind of doing the grind, right? Doing the job of not really having a personal direction, a personal way that you want to go. You just kind of ended up in the career. You ended up in the jobs that you had, and it was fine, right? Perfectly fine. It was,
yeah.
Gosh, we're all lucky to be able to get jobs in some economies that we live through, and but just knowing that, it's not really serving your needs, it's not serving your desires of what you want to do, but not really having a plan, like a life plan of where you want to go. And then eventually starting to take that risk of, I want to try this. That's not going to work. I'm going to try this. That doesn't fulfill me. All right, I'm going to do a podcast. And then, oops, it's not doing so great. So I'm going to cancel that. And then coming back, you know what? I'm going to do it again, but I'm going to do it after getting some training and after really focusing on what I'm going to do. I love the journey that it's not just like, you hit the launch button, and then a month later you had 10,000 downloads and life was grand. Man, you had a struggle to get to where you are today.
Well, and I'll tell you what, Chad, I know that's one of the big things that Gary Vee's talking about is there's this pseudo entrepreneur narrative out there that a lot of people talk about. I started a business and all of a sudden I'm super successful. And it's like, well, what about all the work in between, man? All the struggle, everything you had to learn. Nobody goes out and, wins the World Series first time on a baseball diamond. There's a lot you have to do to get to that place.
Yeah, it's just so much more relatable, right? So when I hear someone tell their journey, right, and their journey is, I hit a home run the first time I walked up to the plate, I go, oh, that's cool, man. Good for you. That's awesome. But then I walk away from it and I completely forget who that person is because I can't relate to them. And I don't understand how to hit a home run the first time you walk up to the plate. But when I hear the story of just a normal guy or a normal girl, just like me, who has been working on this stuff for years and years and years before it paid off and really had, life things and business things and all kinds of obstacles to overcome. And then now you've overcome it. It's like, wow, that's inspirational. That like hits me on my come back on Motivation Monday, man. I could talk all about that with you for a long time, about the motivation of how to get past all of those, obstacles that got in your way. But now it's like, okay, now you have a business. It is running, it is working, it is successful. And you can take a step back and say, you know what, because of the pain, because of the journey, because of the struggles I've had, now I have just a lot better appreciation of where I am today.
Well, totally. And I'll be honest with you, man. The biggest part was when I wasn't making the money that I needed to make. Not that I'm 100% where I want to be, but I'm covering all the bills and I have some freedom. But it was scary when you didn't know where your next bill was going to be paid from. And I think a lot of guys starting out don't realize that, that's going to be coming until you have it all figured out. But, there is a light at the end of the tunnel if you want to work hard and kick butt,
Yeah, that's awesome. So take us to that point where you're like, okay, now I'm going to launch the next podcast, right? I'm going to tear down Rock Your Life because it's just not working and it's not the right style and it's not resonating. But now I'm going to create the next podcast. I have the idea for the next podcast. What made you kind of come back to the same media, the same format, right? And say, podcast didn't work, but I still believe in it and I want to do it again, but I want to do it like with more training and more focus. So what caused you to kind of want to stick to that?
Well, you're going to laugh at this a little bit, but for me, it was the easiest medium to do because it's taken me a little bit to learn. I've become a contributor for a bunch of websites, but I had to kind of hone my writing because I'm more of an academic writer. So, number one, my writing wasn't very interesting to people at the time. Number two, I thought about doing a YouTube channel, but I can't look at myself on video. I just, for some reason, it's weird to me, whatever.
Yeah.
And a podcast just seemed a heck of a lot easier. And I've always loved listening to Tim Ferriss's show. So for me, I was like, all right, I can do that. But, I screwed it up. You have to understand that you did fail at it, but how can I do it better? Because that's the big difference. If you're going to go out and do the same thing, that's insanity, right? Trying the same thing over and over again and knowing it's not going to work. So went out, I found a course, I figured out how to do things a lot better. And that's when I knew I actually had action steps, I actually had something that would work. I just had to promote the heck out of it. And that's the big difference is if you want to really get something out of there, you got to promote the heck out of it. It's going to take so much more action than you think it's going to take to actually reach people.
Yeah, I think that's very interesting because for me, over the course of, a couple of decades now, I've had all these grand ideas of I'm going to build this thing, right? This widget, this software, this podcast, this whatever it is. And once I'm going to spend like months and years like thinking about it and working on it, like in my little private workshop, and nobody knows about it except maybe my wife, but I really kind of hide all the details from her because I'm afraid of somebody stealing the idea because my idea is so brilliant, genius, and everybody's going to want it. And then when I finally like open the door and say, haha, world, here I am, and here's this thing, and it's beautiful and it's wonderful, then like the masses will come crawling to me saying, oh my gosh, Chad, please, 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 I must have it. It's so wonderful. And instead I open the door and it's like crickets and nobody's there. And they're like, who are you? What is this? No, I don't care. That's not what I need.
Exactly. That's the big difference, man. It's like, one of Grant Cardone's big things he talks about is taking 10 times the amount of action to actually get one of the result you want. And I think that's the thing a lot of us don't understand. And, I talk about all the things that I've worked in and I failed in, but you know what? One of the biggest things, though I didn't really enjoy network marketing while I was doing it, and I was decently successful at it, the biggest thing I learned about it is the number of people you have to talk to, the number of actions you have to take to actually close a sale. And everything sales, you know what I mean? If I want to get people to listen to my podcast, I have to sell them. And that's really what you have to understand.
So that's very interesting. Like anything that you're doing in your business, whether it's a podcast or whether you have a product or a service that you're trying to sell, or even just get people to connect with you on social media, or just get people to listen to your voice or hear the message that you're trying to put out there, like all of that, all of those things, that's a sales job. And you're trying to sell people on that they should invest their time or invest their energy in listening to you as opposed to somebody else.
You got it, my friend.
Yeah. So why is it so important? So I know a lot of folks, especially here in the technical world, right? So a lot of folks feel like that the solution speaks for itself. Like I shouldn't have to promote. I shouldn't need to promote. I shouldn't need to like try to sell anything. What I need to do is work on a bigger, better product, right? And if I focus on the product, then it will sell itself. So tell us, why does that not work?
Because the thing you got to think about is, your tool may be the best thing out there, but if nobody knows about it, nobody's going to buy it anyway, right? And I think that's the one thing we think about is we have to get out there big and huge, and that is really the thing. Because then Pat Flynn always talks about, some of the early apps that he tried to launch after he started Smart Passive Income. And the biggest thing was he created the app and then tried to launch it. He had no idea what people wanted. He had no idea how big the reach was. And that was one of the big things I used when I started the podcast is, I launched something big, and then as I went along, I found out what people need and want. I found out what guests people want to hear. I find out a lot of this stuff, and without really taking big enough action and really surveying and actually supplying what people want, it may be the best thing since sliced bread in, your mind or your small niche, but if you can't get it out there and if it isn't actually wanted, it's going to be a waste of your time, money, and energy,
Yeah, absolutely. So now you have this, you're done for you podcast service and your PR firm, so you can help other entrepreneurs kind of get their message out. So what are some of the like mistakes that you see that other people, when they're trying to DIY it, what kind of mistakes do you see them making when they're trying to promote their own product or service?
Well, maybe could you expand on that a little bit just so I can give you a better answer?
Yeah, sure. So you know what, so I'm a DIYer, right? I love to just try to handle it myself and to learn the lessons and to try to do my own promotion or do my own podcast, do my own, do my own editing at the beginning before I learned that I suck at editing and I hate it and I have to get rid of it, right? So, okay, so now I'm going to promote my own stuff. So I'm going to get on social media and I'm going to create some tweets and I'm going to create some blogs and I'm going to create some stuff and I'm going to put that out there. I'm going to email some of my buddies and say, hey, do you mind like promoting it, like giving it a one-up on, some kind of, I don't know, some kind of service or something like that.
Right.
Right. And I'm going to do everything that I know how. But maybe the things that I know how are not good enough, or the things that I know how are not as effective, or maybe I'm reading the exact same blogs and information about how to promote on social media or just how to promote your thing that everybody else is reading, and all that material is like old and stale and doesn't have the same effect that it used to have like 3 years ago when that article was written, right?
Right.
So,
well, here's the best response I can give to you that then.
Cool.
It's all starting out with a matter of viewpoint, right? When you start a business, you're the entrepreneur, but you always have to have on your executive hat, right? Executive meaning somebody that runs other people. And, when you start out, you don't have a lot of money, you're not well known, that's fine. Do everything yourself. But here's the thing. You have to write it all down, right? Write all your methods down. When I'm editing, this is all the actions that are done in editing. Okay, good. It's written down. It's somewhere. When I'm promoting, these are all the actions that are taking and promoting step by step. Here they are. They're written out. Now, that's the thing you have to think of, because now once you are able to grow a little bit or give off one of those responsibilities, you can give it to somebody and you can say, well, this is what I'm doing. And, you're XYZ expert at it. They'll look at it and they'll say, okay, well, I see what you're trying to do here. I can make it better. I can do it better and do it one responsibility at a time. You know what I mean? It's as you have money to be able to leverage other people, then, use that. But you have to have your methods written down, because when you're a startup, man, you got to do a lot of stuff yourself. When I started the podcast, I started all the editing myself, all the website development myself, all of the the CSS, the HTML, all that fun stuff. But you really have to when you don't have any money, right? If you're not getting funded, you have to start it yourself. But the thing I always did is I always wrote down everything I'm doing step by step, because if somebody else is going to take over that responsibility and I'm going to give it to somebody that could do a better job than I can, I have to have my steps down. And that was kind of the biggest thing that I learned from my experience. So I hope that helps.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that can really help someone to understand that that's how you scale, right? So when you're doing it alone, that's great, right? So when I first started this podcast, I was doing, like you were doing, everything by myself. But now I have my style, right? I did the editing and I kind of sucked at it, and meaning that I could get the results, but it took me like 10 times the amount of hours, right, that it would take a professional or just anyone skilled at doing the editing. So I really hated the editing, but I knew what I wanted it to sound like, right? I knew where I wanted my intros to come in, my outros to go out, and like how the music lines up and all that kind of stuff, so that when I was ready and able to say, okay, Transource Media, you guys have heard the spots on my sponsorship side. I love promoting their business now because they've helped me so much in editing my podcast. So I say, hey, Transource Media, hey, Raleigh, can you guys please edit, but use this format that I've already established? I have 21 episodes now, and here's the style that I have. Here's what I want it to have. And going forward, they take it over, but they do so at a much more efficient use of time and energy, right? Where I can focus my time on somewhere else. And so I hear you saying the same thing in every aspect of your business, whether it's the promotion, whether it's the social media, whether it's the editing, whether it's whatever it is. But just write down your steps and kind of have your standard operating procedures, so that when you're able to outsource that to someone else, whether it's find a firm or train somebody else up into taking over that piece of it, that you have the step by step. But then after that, they kind of own the process, and they can make it better and better and invest time and energy into researching the new ways of doing it, where you don't have to do that anymore.
Exactly. And the big thing you always have to think about is you're the guy that started this. You're the visionary, right? You have to make sure your vision comes out. Maybe they're going to do a better job with your vision than you would, but it's still your vision, right? So you have to make sure that the thing that you have in your mind, the idea that you have in your mind, is actually what happens, because you have a much better chance of it working if it's the idea you thought of. And that's something you really have to think of.
Awesome. Perfect. Jeremy, in just a moment, I want to ask you about maybe the biggest lessons that you've learned from all of your guests, because you interviewed so many guests and so many just great thinkers and great entrepreneurs who are making so much success in their business. I want to ask you about what the lessons that you've learned in interviewing them in just a moment. But first, we'll take a quick break and thank our sponsors. This episode of Hello Tech Pros is sponsored by Minio Cloud Storage. Minio is a cloud object storage server for developers and DevOps written in Go. The Go programming language is the emerging language of choice for modern cloud infrastructure projects, and it allows Minio to be highly concurrent and lightweight. Minio is Amazon S3 compatible, built with microstorage architecture in mind, but at its heart, Minio is simple, scalable, and supported by a passionate developer and user community. In episode 89 of Hello Tech Pros, I talked with A.B. Periasamy, one of the founders of Minio, about the importance of community support and recruiting software developers who are as passionate about their product's code as artists are of their art. Check out that episode at hellotechpros.com/89 and check out Minio Cloud Storage at minio.io. That's minio.io. Are you new to podcasting? Are you looking for a fast, high-quality, yet budget-friendly podcast production team? Let Transource Media take care of you. With a team of professional audio and video editors, writers, and graphic artists, they can help you build your podcast from planning, post-production, and platform submission. Using only cutting-edge software and studio equipment, they're here to make each and every show sound at its best. To get a free quote, please visit www.transourcemedia.com or send them an email at marketing@transourcemedia.com or call them at 209-505-5693. Transource Media, transforming businesses through the power of multimedia. Okay, we're back with Jeremy Slate. Jeremy is the founder of the Create Your Own Life podcast, which helps entrepreneurs live the lives they knew they were meant to. And Jeremy, you have interviewed hundreds of entrepreneurs on your show and all kinds of folks who have come in, from just looking at your list, Jesse Ortiz and Bree Seeley and Hershey Hildaldo, just so many great people recently on your podcast. But go back through all the episodes that you have recorded in the past. What are some of the biggest lessons learned where kind of made you take a step back and look at your own business and go, wow, I need to implement this that my guest just shared?
Well, I think the big thing for me, and this has happened in the beginning, happened in the middle, and continues to happen now, is it changed my viewpoint of how I looked at business. When I studied successful people, I learned, one of the big questions I asked them is, what does success mean to you? And I found that what success actually means to them is, they need to get successful so that they can help other people. And it's crazy how many of them give a very similar response to that question. Because you can't help anybody if you don't have the money, the time, the energy. And that's what you're really trying to do in creating your business and creating freedom for yourself is it's the same thing when getting on an airplane, Chad. They tell you to put the mask on yourself before you put it on the person next to you, because if you pass out, you can't help them, right? It's the same thing in business. If I haven't made enough money to give myself more time, to give myself more money. Money isn't energy. It's just an ability to do things. Then that's the only way I can help other people. And it's really cool when you learn how to change that viewpoint on what success is. It's more than a dollar amount. It's more than, just freedom. It's an ability to actually take what you've made and help somebody. That's huge, man. It's a big viewpoint shift that not a lot of people will ever be able to make.
So what did that feel like to you when you kind of made this realization? And was there a particular demographic or a certain type of person that you're like, okay, man, I totally get this and I want to start helping these people and this is how I'm going to do it?
Well, the interesting thing about that is I don't know if it's a particular demographic, but it kind of changed the way I operated. Meaning instead of asking people what they could give me, I'd always ask people what I can do for them. And then you tend to get a lot more stuff that you're not even asking for, because you look at success more as this thing that, we can all have. And because you're driving forward and looking to help other people, more opportunities come your way. That's how I've gotten some of the article opportunities I've gotten. That's how I've gotten some of the podcast guests I've gotten, because I'm always looking to help people. And when you change that from coming from a place of I need, rather than coming from a place of abundance and giving and, helping other people, it changes everything for you. And that's really the biggest thing that I've taken home from that.
So I got this question directed to me in my Slack channel a while back, a few weeks ago, and he said, Chad, why are you so concerned with helping people? Why do you have this in you that you're constantly saying, I want to help my audience, I want to help entrepreneurs, I want to help people with technology, right? Who struggle with anxiety and stuff like that. Why do you want to help them? Because honestly, I'm struggling here with just trying to get my stuff done. I want to build success in my own life. So I'm going to turn that back to you, Jeremy, instead of answering what I said. Why does that resonate with you so much, right? So you want to create value in their lives. You want to help them via helping yourself, right? Help yourself via helping them. But why is that so important to you to do it in that manner? Because there's a lot of people, honestly, who are like, I'm just going to go after me. And they don't see the value in helping others and kind of flipping it around and being a servant leader where you're giving first before you're getting. So why did that, do you think, really, really resonated with you?
Relationships is really the big thing, because it's allowed me to, I guess, have more friends, you know what I mean? Have more people I know, network better. Because let's say you do get there, you do get to the top and you got nobody with you, man, that sucks. It's no fun being successful on your own. And you can look at a lot of people that have gotten there and they don't have anybody. That's a big difference, man. But to go there with, the 5 people you surround yourself with the most, or whatever that group may be, it's a big difference. And, to just know that you're helping other people, it's a big mindset shift that a lot of people can't handle. And for me, it's just being able to have those friendships, man. It's a big deal when I have something great that happens in my business and somebody that I've networked with in creating my business, I call them and I'm like, dude, I am so happy to tell you. It's so excited to tell you about this thing that just happened. And then I get done and say, well, what's going on in your business, man? That's really cool to have those kind of friends.
Yeah, totally. It's a completely different dynamic, completely different relationship, where if you're just constantly in sales mode, trying to sell somebody on something, sell somebody on the idea that they need to promote you, sell somebody on the idea that they need to give you something or to buy something or whatever, that's completely different than like honestly having a friend and being like concerned about their health and their wealth and their mindset and what's going on in their world, and really talking to them on that friendship level, man, that completely changes the dynamic. And then when they come back and they're like, okay, dude, like Jeremy, how can I help you? Like, what's going on? What are you struggling with? Then when they give, it's going to be like 10 times more heartful and 10 times more impactful than if they just said, yeah, I guess I'll buy your $100 course, or I don't know if I'm really interested in your whatever that you're selling right now, right?
Yeah, because it just becomes like you're always asking for something and nobody wants to help the guy that's always asking, you know? So Be the guy that's offering value and you'll actually get stuff offered to you. That's so cool that way.
That's awesome. Well, Jeremy, before we leave, I would like for you to share, if you don't mind, any parting words of wisdom that you have for our audience, then the best way that we can connect with you, and then we'll say goodbye.
Well, I think the biggest thing is to know who you surround yourself with, because I think a lot of people are putting themselves in danger because they don't quite understand who they have around them. You know, when I started my network marketing business, my best friend was a person I really wanted to look at what I was doing, not because I wanted him to join me, but more or less because I wanted him to look what I was doing and be like, oh, that's kind of cool, man. Good job. Keep going. But instead, he would never do it. And one day he finally said to me, I know what you're doing, and I'm going to do whatever I have to do to see you fail. You know, we don't know what kind of people we have around us, and you really need to pay attention to that because they may not always have the best intentions for you. So the people I always say are most dangerous are the ones that are saying, I'm only telling you this because I care. A lot of times they're telling you not to grow, they're telling you not to soar, and you really need to look at that and, you know, decide if that's somebody you really want in your space. So that's really the biggest piece of advice I can give to people is to know who you surround yourself with, because they may be holding you down and they may be the chains that keep you from growing. But that's really the best piece of parting advice I can leave for them. They can check me out over at jeremyryanslate.com. Everything else that I have going on is linked up over there, the podcast, YouTube, Facebook, everything.
Well, Jeremy, thank you so much for joining me on Hello Tech Pros today. Dude, I really value this story of the struggles and the it's not all easy. It's not always a home run when you step up to the plate for the first time. You know, sometimes we don't have direction when we get started, and sometimes we fail when we have a great idea and it just doesn't work out. And sometimes you have to go at it over and over and over before you find your particular niche, before you find your particular voice or your product or your service. And thanks for just keeping it real for us.
Hey, thanks for having me, Chad. I hope this was really valuable to your audience.
You bet. Tech Pros, if you are in the situation where you feel like, you know what, your idea, your product, your service offering that you're making on your side hustles or in your startup that you're creating is just not getting anywhere, take a look at who are you telling it to? Who are you talking about it with, right? Are you telling the world? Are you telling the masses? Or are you trying to keep it secret? Nothing of value happens in the world of secrecy. You have to put it out there. You have to promote it. You have to tell your friends. You have to make new friends and help them and share your ideas with them. And if it's not resonating with lots of people that you're interacting with, then take a look at is it the right thing, or do you do you need to make a shift, or do you need to learn how to speak English like I do today? You've been listening to Jeremy Slate, and I'm Chad Bostic. And until next time, take care. The show notes page for this episode can be found at hellotechpros.com/202. Do you use Slack for team communication? Join the Hello Tech Pros Slack channel at hellotechpros.com/Slack. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a review, subscribe to this channel, and check back tomorrow. This has been Entrepreneurship Saturday, but tomorrow my featured guest and I will not be talking about work because it's Sunday being unplugged. On Monday, we'll get motivated once again to face the week with Motivation Monday, followed by Tuesday, productivity, Wednesday, leadership, Thursday, technology, Friday, people communication, and Saturday, back to our entrepreneurship. and I'll talk to you tomorrow.